We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Tesam and Beis in Meseches Nedarim. This is Nedarim Daf 79b. And the previous sum of the Tanakam and the Mishnah said, let's say the wife says im erchatz or im lo erchatz, those kinds of Nedarim are considered Nedarim of inoi nefesh. They're considered Nedarim of affliction. And so the Mishnah continues, Amar Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, Ein elu nidroi inoi nefesh. These are not examples of Nedarim that are Nedarim of affliction. Vi elu hein nidroi inoi nefesh. The following, though, they're actually examples of Nedarim that are inoi nefesh, that are Nedarim of affliction. And Rabbi Yossi says as follows, Amra konem peros ha'olam alai. Let's say she says, there's a konem, the fruits of the world upon me, I will refrain from eating fruits. Harezeh yachol lahafer. So in that case, the husband, let's say, or the father, is able to annul her vow, because that is considered nidre inoi nefesh, that's considered a neder of affliction. Peros medina zu alai. Now let's say she says the peros of this particular country are upon me, are prohibited to me. So then already that's not inoi nefesh that he can annul, because yavi la mi medina acheres. He's able to bring her fruits from a different country. He doesn't have to bring it from that particular country. That's not considered inoi nefesh if there's another option. And the Ran explains, yavi la mi medina acheres, he can bring her fruits from another medina. Tekevan de muteres lechol mi peros medina acheres, since it's mutter for her to eat from fruits from another medina, ein ze inoi nefesh. That's not considered inoi nefesh. And the Mishnah continues, Peiros chenvoni ze olai. Again, let's say she says the fruits of a particular store are prohibited to me. Eino yachol lahafer. Again, he's not able to annul that vow. That's not inoi nefesh. She can go somewhere else to get her fruits. However, the Mishnah says, if the only place he can get fruits is from this particular chenvani, this particular store, that's the only one that will extend him the credit, so then it is considered inoi nefesh, hareza yafer, then he is able to annul that vow. Divrei Rabbi Yossi, that is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. And the Gemara says, Nidroi inoi nefesh hu demefer she'ein bohen inoi nefesh eino mefer. Is it true that only nedarim of affliction, only those he's able to annul, and if it's not a neder of affliction, he's not able to annul it? V'atanya, but we learned in a brisa, bein ish le'ishto, bein av levito, it says, we're talking about nedarim between the husband and the wife, between the father and the daughter. Melamed shehabal mefer nedarim shebeino leveino. That teaches us that a husband is allowed to annul the nedarim that have to do with their relationship. So that's another kind of neder that he's able to annul. And the Gemara continues, Amri, they answer, Holin v'holin mefer. Really, both kinds of nedarim he's able to annul, whether it's a neder of affliction, whether it's a neder that's beino leveino. Mihu, nevertheless, inoi nefesh mefer liolam. When it comes to nedarim of inoi nefesh, there the annulment is forever. Aval ein b'hen inoi nefesh. But let's say it's a neder that's not a neder of affliction. So then, k'de'isa techuse have hafara, while she's married to him, so the hafara is in effect, and we say it is annulled and it's not a neder. However, once he divorces her, chayel alo nidra. So then the neder will be chal b'dvarim shebeino leveino she'ein b'hen inoi nefesh. If we're talking about matters that have to do with the relationship between him and her that do not involve affliction. Avol yesh b'hen inoi nefesh. However, if it's nedarim that have to do with affliction, so then lo chayel lo nidra. So then the neder is not going to be chal at the time of the divorce. But the Gemara continues with Devarim she'ein b'hen inoi nefesh. Is this really true that when it comes to matters that don't involve affliction, ki megarish la chay la Allah, that when he divorces her, then those nedarim will be chal once again? That's not true. But we learned in a Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, Yafir, he should annul these vows. Shema yigrasheno te'asura lo, because we're afraid maybe he will divorce her, and then she will be prohibited to him. And the Ran explains Vatnan, but we learned in a Mishnah, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer Yafir, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says he should annul the vow. Masnisani b'hai pirka, this is a Mishnah. The Katani Reish, it says at the beginning of the Mishnah, Konim shanios al picha, eino tzarech lafer. It says, let's say she makes a neder, and she says that my earnings are prohibited to you. The wife says that to her husband. So there we say he doesn't really need to annul that vow. Because already there's a shiba to him, she has to give the earnings to him, and she's not able to undo that with a neder. The Rabbanan say the shibud of the Baal is strong enough, there's a takana that he's entitled to the earnings, and therefore the konim, the neder, does not undo that. However, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer, in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, he says, Yafir, the husband should annul such a vow. Why? She'im lo Yafir, because if he doesn't annul the vow, Yachol haneder kishayigrashena. That neder will be chal when he divorces her. And at that point in time, asura lachzor, at that point in time, he won't be able to remarry her. Shema yehana mimena, because then maybe he'll get benefit from her. You're going to have that problem. At that point in time, the neder will be in effect. And for that reason, he should annul the vow. And the point is, you see from Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Alma, we see, ki mefer la meikara, when he annuls the vow originally, meaning when he annuls the vow while they're married, so afilu basar gerish and lo chayil nidra, apparently, even after the divorce, the neder isn't chal, because the whole point of him annulling the vow in this case is in case he divorces her, he'll now be able to take her back, and apparently the neder will still be annulled even after the divorce. And even though her earnings really is something that has to do with something between them in terms of their relationship, so you see clearly from the Mishnah that at the time of the divorce, the neder is not chal once again. And so again, the Gemara says, Alma, we see from this Mishnah, ki megarish lo mefer la meikara, when he divorces her, and let's say he annulled it from the outset, have hafar, it's still going to be annulled even after the divorce. So you can say that after the divorce, the neder comes back. And so the Gemara instead answers, Amri, the answer as follows, Holein v'holein have hafara. The answer is really both kinds of nedarim, whether it's a neder of affliction, whether it's a neder beino leveino, really it is considered a hafara, it is annulled. Elo nidre inoi nefesh mefer bein liatzmo bein liacherim. Rather, the distinction is when it comes to nidre inoi nefesh, when it comes to nedarim of affliction, there the hafara works whether to him, whether to others. We'll see the Ran in a moment. Ein bohen inoi nefesh, but let's say it's a neder that does not involve affliction. Liatzmo mefer liacherim eino mefer. For himself, the hafara works. For others, it does not work. The Ran explains, Bein liatzma, when we're talking about nidre inoi nefesh, it works for himself, meaning, Mahanya hafara delay, bein shi ru'uya la'atzmo shel mefer. It works, the annulment works, whether she is fit to still marry this particular person who annulled it. And bein li'acher means, afilu gersha v'nisis la'acher. It works even in a situation where he divorced her, and she married someone else. At that point in time, she's not even allowed to remarry him. So maybe you'll say that the neder is going to be chal once again. But we say that's not the case. By nidre inoi nefesh, it's going to remain in effect even if she married someone else. But if it's a neder where there's no affliction, it's only something that has to do with their relationship. So so it's going to work as long as it's possible for him to still marry her. But after that, let's say she marries someone else and it's no longer permitted for her to marry him, so then the hafara will not be in effect. Because once she marries someone else, that annulment is batal, and the neder is chal once again. And therefore we learn as follows: the following nedarim, meaning nedarim of inoi nefesh, those he can be made for whether she is fit for him or whether she's only fit for others, she can't marry him. The idea is, when it says mefer, it sounds like it's an eternal hafara. It's going to work forever regardless of the future circumstances. And that's what the Gemara explains. This is what the Mishnah is teaching us. What kind of nedarim does the hafara work, whether she's fit for him or for others? Nedarim sheyesh ben inoi nefesh. We're talking specifically about nedarim which involve affliction. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, imerchatz, according to the Tanakama, if she says, if I bathe, so then that's considered a neder of inoi nefesh. That's a neder of affliction. And the Gemara says, hey chikamer, what exactly is being said in this neder? Ilem, if you're going to say the Amr that she says as follows: Konem et peros olam olai imerchatz. There's a neder, the fruits of the world are usher to me if I bathe, meaning the bathing is a condition. If she fulfills that condition, then the neder takes effect and the fruits are usher. But if that's the case, lama lo hafara, if that's the case, what do you need hafara for in this case? Lo sirchatz, she just shouldn't bathe. V'lo litzron peros olam Allah, and then the fruits of the world, they won't be usher to her. In other words, the fruits of the world being usher, which is the neder, and that's the neder that we're calling the neder of affliction, that doesn't have to happen. As long as she doesn't bathe, so then the condition is not fulfilled, the neder does not take effect, and there's no reason to say that hafara, that annulment would be needed in this case. So long as she doesn't fulfill the condition, everything will be fine. V'yoden further, B'hal lema Rabbi Yossi, in this case, would Rabbi Yossi say, Ein elu nidre inoi nefesh, that this is not an example of a neder of affliction, but it is a neder of affliction, it's just conditional. Dilma rachza, maybe she'll bathe, v'yitzeru peiros olam Allah, and then the fruits of the world would be usher to her. That certainly would be considered a neder of affliction, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Amud Aleph.